Hi, thank you for being with us today. I'm Dr. Marianne Cintron, founder of Step by Step Dyslexia Solutions. I have a very special guest with me today. Her name is Donna Gargett, and I'm so excited because we actually grew up in the San Fernando Valley, not together, but pretty much in the same time area. And I've recently met her. She has an exciting story about being a dyslexic adult and having dyslexic children. So we're going to talk a little bit about the genetic component of that and what kind of support she received or didn't receive when she was going through school, and what about her children. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The reason we have this YouTube is to reach out to dyslexic adults to let you know you're not alone in your situation, and dyslexic parents of dyslexic children to also empower you with tools to help your children today. And we're learning that dyslexia is a trait of genius. So we want to unlock the genius mind of the dyslexic person. So Donna, I want to welcome you to the stage. Hello.
Thank you.
Would you introduce yourself to our audience a little bit more? Something I didn't share, perhaps?
Sure. So yes, my name is Donna Gargett. I currently live in North Carolina, and I have 2 daughters. And I wasn't identified with dyslexia until my 20s, when I really found some awareness because of a TV show and decided to get myself tested. And so from that, I was able to just understand a little piece of dyslexia, but I don't think I really fully dived into what dyslexia is until I noticed my daughter, as soon as she entered the school system, it was like looking at a mirror. And so I thought, well, I think we need to get her tested. And she was also dyslexic. And then my children are only 15 months apart. So as soon as the other one got in the school system, she was actually struggling a lot more. So it was pretty easy to see that she was also dyslexic. But it's been, a little bit of a struggle with advocating for them. So much so that I also founded a nonprofit called Blank Canvas Awareness Art to help fill some gaps in the community here.
That's great. How old were your daughters when they were they had IEPs?
So my oldest, it took a little bit longer to get that process going. And I guess because I was still learning myself. And so I think she was about 7. And then my youngest, as soon as she started kindergarten, we had her up and running.
So talk to the audience about the benefit of identifying this early and giving your child the support earlier, if possible.
So, yes. I mean, my biggest concern really has always been their self-esteem. And that's why we really build that into the nonprofit as well. Because I know growing up, I struggled, but I still, survived. I don't know if that's the word, but, we don't want to be able to survive school. We want to be able to enjoy school. And so when they, started school and I saw them struggle, I learned so much more that, there is a way that they can learn that's, something that can be specialized. And I wanted to see how we could provide that. But what I found out was the school system doesn't provide the specialized tutoring that they so need. And not, teachers just aren't educated with all of the information. And so that's where the nonprofit trying to fill those gaps. But the benefits, really is just one, I think, self-identifying, just knowing and taking a look at, well, what are my needs educationally, and learning at a young age to start advocating for yourself. Because I think, as an adult, I didn't ask for the things that I needed, even in the workplace. And so we help adults and children with our nonprofit. And, I think it's really important to make sure that you grow up knowing, these are my strengths and these are my needs. And, I'm really great at, creative and problem solving. but I really need technology to help me get through my day to day, and I use it every day. I love Grammarly. I don't know how I survived before that.
Mhm.
But I think that's the biggest hurdle, is making sure that we're kind of protecting their self-esteem along the way.
Talk about, I agree. I think unlocking the genius starts with helping them read so that we can build their self-esteem. Because when kids aren't reading, they just feel dumb, and they're not. They're very creative. I know one thing I share is that we weren't born with a reading brain like we were to see and hear, but we have many brain parts that work together. And that's why we like that multisensory reading approach where we're pointing and speaking and saying letter names and letter sounds and moving. And what gets my attention is kids with ADHD are a little bit trickier to teach if we call it comorbid, existing with dyslexia. But if they're not identifying kids with dyslexia, but instead they're saying they have ADHD, talk to us about that.
Yeah, so that's what I've found to be true, to get to the point of getting the IEP, that they would recognize the ADHD, but maybe not put the word dyslexia in the IEP, until I really fought harder and advocated harder and learned more about how to do that. But it shouldn't be that way. And really, you know, I think the dyslexia is more the issue, especially now that she's older. She's still struggling to learn to read. And so the school system, even though I was able to get the IEP early on, they still weren't able to fully address the issues. And so we're still behind, we're not at grade level. And it's just because we don't have enough teachers to know how to provide those tools in the school system. And they understand what ADHD is, and understand that there may be some attention issues. And there definitely is, even with her specialized tutoring, it's hard to keep her on task. And you have to be a really talented tutor or teacher to redirect her and keep redirecting her. But she, sometimes there isn't always that eye contact, but she's taking it all in. And, it takes that understanding of understanding ADHD, but also understanding the component that, those sounds aren't connecting, and we need to really focus on the science of reading.
That's really good. And we call it, the science of reading, and it's structured literacy, it's phonics. When I teach the kids OW, it can sound like ow in plow, and it can sound like O as in snow. So there is a little bit of, I don't want to say sight words because they are phonetic, but they need to look at the context of how the word's used to learn how to sound the words out. And I'm in an Orton Gillingham practicum, and I'm still learning not to say it's tricky. I want to say this is tricky, but I'm being taught, don't say it's tricky, because it's phonics, and it does make sense. We just have to learn how to teach them to make sense of it. You shared in another conversation we had about your other daughter having anxiety, and how she got her IEP because of the anxiety, not because, and was it ADD also?
No, so she has anxiety, she has dyslexia and dyscalculia.
Okay.
And I would say for her, the anxiety and, the struggle with math is, her big hurdles. But it seemed like the school recognized the anxiety before they recognized the other areas. And so when you have your IEP meeting, as a parent, making sure that they're hitting every point, every challenge that your child's having, and making sure that we're addressing each of the issues and how we can make those accommodations. So for anxiety, that comes from, she just needs a safe place in the classroom to know that they're not going to call on her to read. to help her not have to have a presentation, or to be able to adapt her presentation to, something where, she's more comfortable with using the computer or just doing a slideshow or a Google slide, or, but still not having to read the slide. That causes just so much anxiety. And so, through the IEP, I'm really feel like as a parent, I end up, and I shouldn't be as a parent, educating the team on, what we're really talking about and why the anxiety is there and how we could help her feel more comfortable. Because I've never met a teacher that didn't want to help their student. And it really is just, they're just don't understand what that's like. And so for me as a parent, but also someone that's dyslexic, I fully understand my children, and I feel like I can advocate for them in a different way than some other parents maybe. So,
Well, and I've had a parent tell me once that her daughter developed an anxiety, an ulcer. It was an adult, it was dyslexia-induced ulcer because of the anxiety. And I think what you're advising the teachers and the parents to do, the parents need to advocate for their kids, but they could let the teachers know, let her know what she's going to be asked to read and give her some options, or the son or daughter, how they can present orally and be creative. Let them use that creative outlet that they have.
yes. And my daughter is very aware of her feelings, and she's already self-advocating. So I'm very proud of her. She went to her first IEP meeting. I think she was in 4th grade, and was able to give her own input. So I was very proud of her for that.
Oh,
And
that's amazing.
yeah, I think that's really important for kids to be empowered and, have an adult to talk to before they get to the IEP meeting. What are you going to ask for? What should we ask for? What are your needs? And this is the time of year to really have those conversations, with kids. I know there's a lot of anxiety just in general for any child, just because of the pandemic, and some maybe were homeschooled and now they're going back. I know mine are. We're not going to be able to keep up with homeschool just because of work life going back to normal. And I think there's a lot of families in that situation too. So,
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea for families to kind of sit down and regroup and kind of talk it through, and be able to have, kids feel comfortable to practice with an adult of how do you advocate in the classroom for yourself.
You mentioned that a lot of the teachers really want to help their students. And I see that in two ways, how it related to me. I was a classroom teacher for 10 years, an educator for 22, but in the classroom for 10. And I remember seeing those bright students, and they just couldn't read or write. And I was learning things in my teaching programs that I would try, but they just seemed to learn at a slow pace. And it wasn't until I learned about dyslexia when I was earning my second master's, and I joined the International Dyslexia Association. And they were the ones that told me all the specifics about dyslexia. And then in my own research, I learned about music and the value of playing music in the left ear when a dyslexic child is learning. And oh my gosh, I started seeing children move at a faster pace. Because as a teacher, we're like, oh, it's so slow. One student needed tubes in his ears because he was hearing as if he was underwater, and the school passed him off. Oops, you just froze. I don't know if we're going to keep on recording. The school passed it off that his hearing was fine, and it wasn't. So he got some help. And the teachers are always looking deeper. How can we help our students? And then the other thing I think about for teachers is their plates are so full. There's always benchmarks and new students and, reporting grades. And there's so much work given to the teachers that they don't want to learn about dyslexia too, And a lot of the teachers who have that active involvement in sports, or, they're involved in extracurricular things at school, they don't have time to add something else to their plate, especially when they have a family at home. So I just, really want to encourage parents, look at the International Dyslexia Association and also Decoding Dyslexia, because we have conferences and we have wonderful speakers who tell you about dyslexia and let you know what you can do for your children. We're always trying to invite parents. Look in your local communities for the International Dyslexia Association. Tell us about your nonprofit, Donna. I just love the whole idea of the canvas, the artsy feel to it.
Yeah, so it's titled Blank Canvas Awareness Art, and the idea came from that unlocked potential, kind of looking at that blank canvas and what are you going to put on it, right? And so that's where I got the idea of the name. And it became tricky on how do we educate the community about what dyslexia is. And so, I'd go to the library and do different presentations, but people weren't coming. But they definitely came to an art show where I invited the community to participate, to help explain what are the warning signs for dyslexia. And so we found kind of our niche of, bringing the community together and educating them, but also giving an outlet to adults and children to, show off what are their talents, what are their strengths. And, art is always a positive platform. And we were able to do that in the community. And so it's grown from there. At the time we established the nonprofit, we were in Jacksonville, North Carolina, which is more of a rural kind of area. And, we felt like we had to fill a lot of gaps. So we were providing tutoring and education, advocating and mentoring. We've since stepped back from our tutoring, but we do have a therapist that we brought on board. So we still have our acronym team, which is nice. But we, like I said, I really believe, and my background is mental health. And so our tagline is love your difference. We want children and adults to really value themselves and be supported with their self-esteem and their self-image. So we provide support to adults in the community that are struggling maybe in the workforce and, need some more assistance. There's so much technology now, but I think a lot of us don't always know what direction to go. I know myself, I struggled in the workforce and not having the right tools. And so, teaching not just children, but adults to self-advocate and to know what tools to ask for.
Okay, so you're another wonderful resource for parents. If they need to know, what do I do next? They would, to help my child, they would email you or call you. What number or email should they reach out to you with?
So you can, we have a website and it's just Blank Canvas Awareness Art. You can search us that way. We have a Facebook page. We're on Instagram under Dyslexia Art. And, a lot of times parents reach out trying to find out what is the first step, how do we get testing? So in North Carolina, we are a big support for a lot of families with, what are the steps and how do I get there? So they can definitely reach out to my email, Donna.Gargett, bcaa@gmail.com. So, yeah.
Okay. One of the things that I offer as well is screening. I won't call, I've been an educator for 22 years, working with dyslexia for 18. So I do a screening that is so closely resembling what a psychologist would do. So people can get a more affordable screen if they want to reach out to me.
Okay.
But I know that there's wonderful resources in you, and I thank you. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. I want to thank you so much, Donna, for your time. And for our audience, just keep on listening to our podcast. We continue to have very resourceful speakers on. If I may also end with a little commercial of two of my recent books that just are published on Amazon. One of them is Prisms of Brilliance, and it talks about closing the achievement gap, stopping the school to prison pipeline, because 35% of children who drop out of high school are dyslexic. Where do they go? They go into prison, and they go into crime, they go into gangs if they don't have that support from their parents. And so I want to see no illiteracy here in our prisons. We have 88% of the juveniles in our juvenile court system are illiterate, and 66% of the people in our prisons are illiterate. They can't read above a 4th grade level. The other book right off the press is Dyslexia, a Trait of Genius: How to Unlock the Brilliant Mind of Your Dyslexic Child. So those are both available on Amazon. I'm so excited. Let those be a resource for you as well. And so we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. If what we have shared has inspired you, would you visit my website, dyslexia-solutions.com, and consider making a donation, because we need help keeping our podcast going and our YouTubes and our website. And we really appreciate any amount you could contribute. So thank you very much. Be sure you like our YouTube and that you subscribe. And we hope to see you next time. Thank you very much. And we'll see you, Donna.
Thank you.